Hi, sorry about that, guys.
I haven't perfected the New York walk, thank you. So they're like, hold on, guys.
There's a California walk.
Yeah.
There's a New York
We're
walk.
slow and rambling now.
Well, so welcome. I'm Julia Angwin. I'm a reporter, a technology editor. I keep forgetting I'm an editor at the Wall Street Journal. My social media cred is that I wrote a book about MySpace 2 years ago when people thought MySpace was actually really hot. And
I think that was more than 2 years ago.
Right, well, yeah, there's the publishing cycle, right? So I wrote it 4 years ago and it came out 2 years ago. But anyways, but during the course of that, what I learned is that social media is really hot. MySpace is not. And then after that, I came back to the Journal, and I've been writing a lot of our privacy stories, which actually also involve a lot of Facebook. And Randi is best known as the sister of Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, but she is her own woman. And she ran marketing at Facebook until August, and now she set up her own super secret company, which she actually won't tell me what it does, but I'm sure she's going to tell you all. So I thought we could just start at the beginning. Maybe tell us a little about yourself, how you got into social media, and maybe start at the beginning.
Sure.
You talked about, I saw some interviews, you said you love to sing, you grew up wanting to be a cantor, so maybe you can start all the way at the back.
Oh gosh, well, I always loved music, and after I graduated college, I went to work at Ogilvy and Mather. Everyone at Harvard was going into iBanking or management consulting, and I was like, I guess one of the two people that didn't want to go into that field. So I was like lost to career services. They were like, go forth and be creative, whatever you're going to do out there. And I was at Ogilvy, and my brother was starting this company, Facebook, at Harvard, and it was. We were talking on Instant Messenger a lot, and he kept saying, I really think you should come work here. This is exciting. You should come join me. And I was like, why would I leave my fabulous New York life and come join you at your silly startup?
So how long did it take him to convince you?
It took about a year, I would say.
So you waited basically until they moved out of the sublet into an actual office?
That's right. They were in an actual office above a Chinese food restaurant, and I went out there, and there was just this amazing energy in the office. It's really hard to describe, but just to capture what it felt like to have these 10 young people in a room who all kind of knew that they were working towards this mission. And I remember sitting in a meeting where they were picking what the Facebook logo would look like, and they all kind of turned to me, and they were like, okay, Randi, you choose. And I was like, I don't even work for this company yet. What do you mean I choose? And they said, well, you're the one with the marketing background, so it's your call. And there I was kind of slaving away as an assistant account executive with 3 years till I can become an account executive, and then this, and here I get to choose the logo. And it gave me just this insight into what working in a startup was like, and how you could just really throw yourself into all these opportunities where you'd actually have decision making.
Right. Well, I mean, Facebook is such a global brand now. It's an incredible story. You did a great job at branding, I guess. Before we talk about how to use social media, which I think is what the panel's about, I'd be curious just to hear a little bit of the Facebook branding story, because it does have a strong brand, and and it has a very distinctive blue, right?
I think there were a few things that the Facebook team did really well, and a lot of these were done even before I got there. For one, they kind of did a demand-led marketing. So they started at one college. Rather than just immediately opening up to the entire world at once, they would wait until another college was pretty much begging to have Facebook at that school. They would wait till they got a certain amount of emails requesting Facebook, and then they would open it to that college. So that way, when Facebook actually opened at that college, there was critical mass already. There was people and we had already hit that tipping point. So they opened it up one by one by one, and what was kind of funny is, at first it was open at Harvard and Yale, and then they were going to open it to Columbia, and the Harvard and Yale folks revolted. They were like, you can't open it to Columbia? Why would you do that? Why would you, corrupt our network? And then they let the Columbia folks on, and then when they went to let the fourth school on, the Columbia folks went up in arms. They forgot that there was a time that they weren't in the network already. But So it went through all the colleges in America, colleges internationally, the military. We opened it to high school students and then to everyone. So really went through kind of a demand-led marketing program.
And do you think that's a good strategy to lower costs because you don't have to spend marketing money to seed these markets, or is it good for technological reasons because of server loads? I mean, what's the
I think for all of the above. I think if you can really tap into the viral nature of a launch, I mean, a lot of other companies have done that. Gmail with the invites, it felt very exclusive. Everyone was kind of begging to get into the service. I mean, it definitely lowers the costs of what you have to do for marketing.
You know, that is such a tech thing, isn't it? The beta, the invites, the
feel
exclusivity,
exclusive.
begging for the next iPhone, right? It's an amazing marketing strategy.
I'm like shocked everyone's in this room right now and not at the Apple store, actually. In Silicon Valley today, there would not be an event like this.
Because you have to have the new iPhone. Yeah, but it's actually kind of interesting because people always think of Silicon Valley as a really tech-driven, but actually there's quite a bit of marketing savvy around the exclusivity of these things.
Yeah, I mean, it was also interesting because here I came from this world where marketing meant big ad campaigns and television and wrapping subways. And then when I went to Facebook, they were like, okay, so you have about $40 this year as your marketing budget. I think we bought T-shirts. Was our entire marketing budget for the first year.
Who did you give the T-shirts
We
to?
gave them to some NYU students who helped us film a video. We're like, here you go. And don't misrepresent the brand. I don't even know. But it's first of all, it was amazing to work on a product that kind of marketed itself. But it was also a bit of a challenge too, because one of the roles that I had as I got towards a few years down the line was looking at every movie script, television script, ad that wanted to use Facebook. Sometimes you can't even turn on the television now without seeing every ad in a block mentions a Facebook URL or every show. So we were actively going through scripts, working with companies, and it was kind of a new form of partnership marketing.
So that's how the social network came to be. You went through that script, and
I did actually see that script in advance.
That was a very good movie. Although I've been told it is a small resemblance to reality.
It is. You have to highlight. I mean, our lives are not that fun and glamorous. And I said I don't know what Harvard those people went to, but that was not the correct one.
So let's talk a little more about social media in general. You know, working at Facebook, you have a lot of expertise in how people can use social media to promote their own brands. And, you know, as somebody who writes about social media, I would say that I get two really big questions from people about how to do marketing. The first one is, how do I get to the top of the newsfeed?
Yep.
Right? And so I'm wondering, what do you say when people ask you that?
Yeah. I would say there's a few things. I mean, I guess I have kind of my like top 10 list or top 3 list of what I would say, but I think the first thing is a lot of people, I guess, are tempted to post through third-party services. Like they just either stream Twitter into their Facebook page or they'll use a third-party services. Those definitely don't perform as well in EdgeRank, which is the algorithm for newsfeed. Also, photos tend to do really well in newsfeed, and anything where you could encourage people to tag themselves. So as an example, I saw a nonprofit actually do something really cool. They ran a half marathon race, and at the finish line, they actually took a photo of every single runner and said, "We're uploading this to our Facebook page tomorrow. Go on and tag yourself in it." Which meant that every runner who tagged themselves, it showed up on their news feed, on all of their friends' news feeds, and the nonprofit actually was able to increase their like count by 3 times overnight. So anything that you can do that encourages people to tag themselves is also very effective.
Now, whatever happened, there was this move at Facebook for sponsored stories where people could actually sort of buy a spot in the newsfeed. Did that ever actually pan out?
I mean, I think Facebook's
like
always trying really innovative things. I think what the idea behind it was interesting, right? You're paying very close attention to your news feed because you're seeing really engaging content. You're seeing that so-and-so just got married and here's their photos, and so-and-so just had a baby and look who's at this party. And so, you know, the initial thought is if you stick a branded message in there, people are really reading and paying attention. But I think the direction that the company went was more of like word of mouth and friend endorsement. So now if you look on Facebook on the homepage, you'll see, 6 of your friends have liked this page, or 7 of your friends have watched this video, and that makes you significantly more likely to actually engage with the ad.
Right. And so that leads to my second question, which is, one of the challenges with marketing on Facebook is that so much of it's a challenge for Facebook, is that so much of what's important to do there is free. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's, there's not so, you can still buy the little ads, but actually like generating this viral discussion is actually the really interesting part of marketing on Facebook, which is a challenge for the company, no?
It is. Although what I would say is, especially in light of some of the current events that are going on, you don't want to wait until there's kind of a crisis situation with your brand to grow your community. You want to put in the work and the ad dollars to grow your community before there's a situation where you're like, oh, geez, I wish we had a community to talk to. And we see that every day with brands where suddenly something happens and they scramble to make a statement to the community. And it's always the brands that have been in a conversation with their fans leading up to that fare best.
Now, you were talking about a good example of this that's been going on recently.
Yeah, I was just reading about Bank of America and kind of the opportunity that exists for them this week. There's been a lot of outcry over the debit card fees that are going on. And what I guess a lot of the blogosphere has noticed is that Bank of America kind of went silent on social media. Rather than choosing to be in conversation and engage with all of their fans. Now, I'm sure that they're in kind of a crisis communication mode internally, but if you had that community built up that you were actively in conversation with, I think that's a great opportunity moving forward for them to kind of tease out ideas with the community before they launch things that might surprise the community.
So like beta test the idea of...
Yeah, or, it's funny, I was thinking of like the airline baggage fees example. Like I can't even remember which airline did that first when I think of it, if people were up in arms. Now though, it's very commonplace. If you go to a flight and you're going to check a bag that you're going to pay for it. But imagine if brands were asking you, what would you be least angry with us for charging, or we're going to do this. Let's roll it out with a few of our users in advance.
Right. So it's like a focus group.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny. I was speaking at a conference once. A movie executive came up to us and said, Randi, we need to talk because you've made it so that we cannot release a bad movie. And we need to be able to release bad movies. So we need, Facebook is not our friend in this. So let's talk about how this is going to happen. And we kind of just looked at him and we were like, how about don't release bad movies? I don't know. But it's the same kind of thing where you should be able to always use Facebook as a focus group. You have these engaged fans there. You should never have to release anything that's a gamble.
Right. Well, so another question people ask me is, what should my Facebook page look like? What should it? And so, as I was saying backstage, like your Facebook fan page is it's just beautiful. It looks like it's very relaxing. Feels like a clean, well-lighted room, and I'm wondering if you can share any tips about it, because a lot of Facebook pages are really messy, my own included.
Sure. I mean, the first thing I think is to definitely have a branded landing tab that people land on. If you especially, it's almost like you have to give people a little bit of a reason to want to like your page. Imagine if you were walking into a department store and they're like, I'm sorry, you can't come in unless you give us $50. I mean, would you even walk in? No, you wouldn't. So you have to kind of let people go in and browse a beautiful selection of the racks before they decide to like you. So I think having people land on a gorgeous custom landing tab that says why they should become a fan of your business is really important. I think also the profile photo that you choose for your business's page is really important. A lot of businesses just put their logo. But what people don't understand is that 99% of people are engaging with your business in newsfeed, not on your page. So if they only get one image to look at for your brand, you want it to be something engaging with people's faces and people doing something active, probably not just a logo.
Oh, really? So like you shouldn't just have I would think everybody would want just their picture of their product.
Yeah, I mean,
it's such a small photo.
It is. It's so small, right? But if everyone's looking, absorbing your content in newsfeed and not actually heading off to your page, you want to make those teeny pixels you have as engaging as possible, because it's competing with those baby photos and those wedding photos.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. So now talk a little bit about, you left Facebook in August, and you're starting your new secret project. Can you tell us what it is?
Silicon Valley, we call it stealth mode. It's very exciting. Sometimes you even keep your company's stealth from yourself. It was so as I progressed in marketing at Facebook, I started to get more and more passionate about the intersection between traditional media and social media. I was especially drawn to kind of live world events and how they were covered in a social way. It started around the election in 2008. We worked with ABC News on one of the first ever joint online-offline debates. Then with CNN for the inauguration, we had kind of the first global live streamed event where you could comment on Facebook simultaneously while you were watching it. Recently, I worked to launch a show called Facebook Live from inside the company, where we actually had, anytime there's a new product launch, engineers came on and had a real-time conversation. We had President Obama, Oprah, and then was nominated for an Emmy for my coverage, which was probably one of the most random and exciting things. But it was all, I just kind of woke up and had this moment where I was like, this is what I'm passionate about, the intersection of live events, brands, content, and social media. And I think the timing is right for almost a new level of what I've been calling like the social correspondent. That level of covering live events and bringing the millions of people online into the discussion.
Wow. Okay, can you explain that a little more? Social correspondent?
Sure.
So as somebody who's just a regular correspondent who takes notes and then writes in the paper, I'm still wrapping my head around it.
No, there's the people like you out in the world who are, real experts at what you're doing when you're out there and you're interviewing people. But you have your own viewpoint on things and you're conducting the interview. Then there's kind of millions of people who are watching. Imagine if right now we were having this interview and you were simultaneously kind of getting questions from Facebook and Twitter for me, and we had kind of screens up that were showing the insights and how people were responding to our interview in real time. I think people who are watching content, they want to be involved in the content, and they actually feel ownership over the events that they're watching, and how do you bring them into the discussion.
Although I have been at events where the Twitter stream is going behind you, and they're saying like, oh my God, this is the worst, this is so boring. It's the most horrifying experience. But maybe it's a good lesson.
Yeah, I think about it, and you're like, okay.
You guys are all like, I'm tweeting that right now, actually. Can we get the Twitter stream? Probably we don't want to see it.
But I think, especially for events like the World Economic Forum, the Olympics, there's these incredible events that are coming up even in the next calendar year that people just, they're hungry for all this information, and they're hungry to be a part of the discussion. And traditionally, it's just that, you have the content companies who have sole ownership, and how do you bring those millions of people into the conversation so they feel like they're right there at the event with you? Well,
speaking of that, I do really want to this is a very full room, and I want, this is about social media, I want people to participate and ask questions. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then I hope we can open it up. But I wouldn't be worth my salt as a privacy reporter if I didn't ask some questions about privacy. And I think the one I want to ask, there's so many questions for Facebook on privacy, but you have been quoted recently saying anonymity on the internet has to go away. And I think that's a really controversial stand to take. So I wanted to hear a little more of your thoughts on that.
Yeah. That's my personal thoughts. It's not the thoughts of any company. But I know even when Facebook first started out, it was pretty groundbreaking online that they asked people to use their authentic identity. When you log on to Facebook, it's your first name and your last name, and really there weren't any other companies online who were kind of requiring that of you and asking you to actually give a college EDU address or a business address to verify your identity. But what we saw over the years is that it made the quality of the site a lot better. People watch what they say when their real name is attached to it. And when we opened it up so that blogs and other sites could actually use Facebook identity in the comments, the quality of the comments got better on all of those sites. We live in a world right now where we're hearing about these cases of cyberbullying. We're hearing of just unfortunate incident after incident. I think personally that people hide behind anonymity online, and they feel that behind this anonymity they can say whatever they want and they can be as mean as they want. And I think the first step towards solving some of these problems is forcing people to use their real identity online.
But the obvious counterpoint is that some people really need to be anonymous online. I mean, dissidents in countries that with repressive regimes. The story of Egypt, you know, the guy who was organizing the some events on Facebook in Egypt, actually Facebook, I believe, actually shut down the page because he was using a fake name. Well, of course he was using a fake name. He was trying to hide from the government. He found someone in the U.S. who would run the page for him, and so then they were able to get reinstated. But I worry about a future where, you know, we have to launder our identities like that, because does that mean that a revolution can only take place if the people there have a friend in the U.S. who can run the site for them? You know, so it's an interesting question.
No, I mean, I think it's definitely... I think there's a lot of like really great debate that has to happen around this issue, because there are, I mean, we saw in Iran, in Egypt, these revolutions that were happening, but I also see, I mean, in our own country, I mean, I'm a mom now, right? And I mean, I want my children to grow up in a world where they're not bullied by their classmates online, and that people can't hide behind fake identities online to just be cruel. And you're right, there's probably a middle ground there. It's probably not as extreme as anonymity and 100% has to go away, but I think, you know, establishing at least real name identities online is a good first step.
Well, I just want to point out that journal comments are also require identity, and those people can be very mean. I just want to point out, does not eliminate meanness. Okay, I want to open up to questions. I don't know if there's someone going around with a mic or how the questions are working. Okay, there's someone in the back, and here's...
Hi, thank you so much for coming in. My name's Alex, and I run marketing for an investment firm. So my question for you is, we've talked about how social media can help invigorate a brand, but do you think there's any instances where it's not appropriate? And the reason I ask is because we have so many regulatory issues that prevent us from doing so, wanted to know if you had any thoughts on that.
I know that, I mean, there definitely are some industries that have challenges. I know, for example, the pharmaceutical industry you can't legally have comments on Facebook pages. I think that there's always an opportunity. I mean, there's so many financial institutions doing incredible things on Facebook right now. I look at kind of what American Express is doing, even with Foursquare, what Chase is doing with crowdsourcing philanthropy. So even if there's regulations around certain types of content, there's always a way, I think, to make your brand more human. So maybe it is through philanthropy, and maybe it is through crowdsourcing how your fund is going to give away philanthropy just by tapping into Facebook, and which doesn't violate any of the legal restrictions. Or maybe it's around becoming, you know, an expert place for family financial advice. I think that there are definitely things you can do, or showing kind of employees behind the scenes, or you know, giving a face to your executive team.
More questions? Scared everyone away. Oh my goodness. Okay, I can go on, but there's got to be somebody over there.
There's a difference between privacy and sharing in public as a default, and the the ability for new Facebook and some of the other networks that are starting to automatically share what we do, and once we give that permission to allow it to continue to be in that default. Just as an example, one of my friends had something on the Facebook wall that said, so-and-so has started reading the Wall Street Journal yesterday. And I thought, I wonder if she knows that that's coming up and how this living in public will change the way we behave. I've noticed certain of my friends have stopped using Spotify because it was throwing up songs that they didn't want everybody to know that they were, that they were listening to. So how does that, it's
everyone knows my Britney Spears addiction now. No, I think these are great points. I often think back to kind of the example of caller ID. And how when caller ID first launched, everyone was up in arms, like, oh my gosh, this is such a violation of my privacy. Everyone can see my phone number. And now we live in a world where if it's unknown or blocked, you don't answer your phone. So obviously there's a real line that you have to walk because when you're a brand like Facebook, like one of these social media companies that has no predecessor to really, you're always pushing innovation forward, and it's a really fine line because you have to listen to the users enough to say, okay, are they just kind of reacting to change? Are they just resistant to change, but this is going to be better for the industry in the long run? Or is this actual feedback that we need to take into account and change our product? And I know that was always the case. We were always kind of balancing that line of innovation and user feedback. And who knows what kind of a world we'll live in 5 years from now. But you're right, there's definitely this whole generation who's growing up in public with both the opportunities and the challenges that presents.
More questions?
I guess I have a question about global brand, and is there a global brand that you think that leverages social media, and conversely, is there a global brand that you wish would use social media more?
It's a great question. First, actually, before, that was a point that I wanted to make before. I'll come back to that in a second. But I think, a great opportunity for Facebook that I see a lot of brands, I guess, they create a new page for every market that they're in, right? It'll be like, Europe and South America and every different market that you have a headquarters in. I think a lot of people don't take advantage of kind of the amazing geo-targeting and insights that are available on Facebook pages. So you can actually make updates on your page that goes out only to specific users in a specific city who speak a specific language. There's really no need to have hundreds of different pages for a brand when you can actually customize your content so that people down to a zip code see certain content. It's funny because I was actually speaking to some of the folks from Burberry backstage. I think they do a pretty incredible job on Facebook. If you take a look, all of their fashion shows are live streamed with like live updates that you can see the outfits before even the people in the room at the fashion shows see the outfits. I think that Starbucks does a really good job also with being really timely with their campaigns. And I think Chase Community Giving was one of my favorite examples of a brand that's doing it well because it was so intelligent. They were going to give away money to philanthropy anyway, but by involving all of their Facebook users in the decision of which philanthropies to actually give money to, it brought goodwill for the brand. It had all of these nonprofits kind of advertising for Chase on their own to bring in all of their followers to vote for them. And it's fostered this incredible community. I think Chase now has almost 3 million likes on their Facebook page. And I mean, for a bank to have that many likes is, I think, pretty
What's the going rate for likes? Isn't it like there's some number, every like is worth 20 cents, right? There's some
I don't know.
number.
I haven't heard.
I feel like, yeah, there's something like you count your likes and then you say you've got this much money worth. I can't remember.
I'm sure. I think there have been a few nonprofits that have put out studies like that too, like what the value of a like is in terms of donation. But I'm sure of the exact number.
More questions?
It's a little bit of a right turn because it's not specifically about social media, but I'm thinking about you now taking a lead from Facebook and starting your own company. What are the experiences and lessons that you're taking with you from Facebook, and as you sort of start this company and now you're in charge?
Thanks. It's exciting. I know. I was saying, so I kind of have 2 startups right now because I have a 5-month-old baby also. And I think everyone looked at me like I was crazy. And, we were talking backstage, like all the books say, when you're pregnant and right after you have your baby, you will be tempted to change everything about your life. Don't do it. You are not in sound mind. But
you did it anyway.
But here I am, so too late. It was interesting because I still consider myself a really big part of the Facebook ecosystem, even though I'm in my own company. And what I found myself doing is Facebook never really partnered with other companies per se. We always taught people how to use the Facebook platform, and we positioned ourselves as a tech company that anyone could use. The platform's open to anyone. And I kept having media companies come to me and say, we're doing this debate, or we're doing this thing, partner with us. And I would always say to them, honestly, everything you're telling me you want to do, you could do on your own on the platform. And I kept saying that over and over like a broken record. And then finally I was like, I need to go practice what I preach because, I'm telling all of these people to do these incredible media content programs on Facebook on their own. Like, nothing is stopping me from building a media company on top of Facebook and doing everything that I told everyone to do on their own. So I sort of feel like I'm in the same job that I was in Facebook, just doing it from the outside and really showing everyone out there how you can actually do meaningful media campaigns and content programs on Facebook.
Is it harder than you thought?
It hasn't been, actually. I mean, when I was, I always made it a prerogative to not use internal Facebook engineering resources, even when I was leading marketing there, because I always wanted to get the experience of what it felt like to be a brand, building a program on Facebook. So if we were doing our own content program, I would hire one of our preferred developers, and we would, do like an ad buy, and we would do everything that an outside brand would do if they were putting together a campaign on Facebook. So I sort of felt like the last 6 years was boot camp training of my own to run this.
More questions? That's such a different approach while we're waiting from MySpace. So when MySpace started selling, it was really the first to go after brand marketing on social media. They wanted to do all the engineering themselves. Yeah. So you had to come to them and get in their developer queue and wait 6 months for them to build you a page. Yeah. And now, of course, where are they?
The engineers at Facebook are so tied up building the core product that anything that I wanted to do in marketing, I could get it done so much quicker and easier by going out to our preferred developer program, because there's all this huge ecosystem of companies built on top of Facebook right now who are kind of Facebook experts in many ways.
Right. One over there. Oh.
I have the mic, so I'll go first. Okay. Sorry. Hi. What are your thoughts on the best way to position the amount of resource and people time and energy that gets spent on the social media versus the balance, which is what are you bringing in from a revenue perspective, especially for a financial company? Mm-hmm. How do you best position that argument? Because that's a struggle that we're facing in terms of, that's nice. You have, 1,000 likes. But what is it doing for the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a few ways definitely to measure the ROI that comes out of social media. I think on one hand, there's definitely new customer acquisition, which I think is what you're talking about in ROI. There's also kind of retention of your customers. I see a lot of companies are kind of running loyalty programs out of Facebook and Twitter. I think customer support is actually also something that shouldn't be underestimated, because having your customer feel like they can write something on your wall and get an immediate response kind of creates a brand affinity and conversation that's difficult to measure but very rewarding. And then also we were talking about with Bank of America, where taking the time to create and foster that community helps you weather a crisis situation better. So I agree. We're kind of in a fuzzy gray zone where it's how do you define ROI exactly, but I think that there's certainly values to community management and that are beyond just new customer acquisition.
Question about listening to customers. When Facebook has over 750 million users, so when 1 million people are angry that you've changed a feature, that's like 0.13%. So how do you make sense of the noise? Like you were talking a little bit before about people being angry about change versus actually being upset about a feature or a thing. How can brands learn from the experience of somebody like Facebook or other large companies who are dealing with this kind of volume of messages, not all uniform?
I remember when we launched Newsfeed for the first time, and I mean, this is a feature that we had been working on for a year inside the company, and we were so excited, and you know, we had all been beta testing it for months before as employees, and all of a sudden we launched Newsfeed, and literally, I think every single user on the site protested, and they were it was funny because they would say things like, you know, 1 million people against Newsfeed, but then they would say, ironically, I only discovered this protest through Newsfeed. And what we saw was, you know, people were angry and they were saying things, but engagement on the site that day went up 10x. And so we kind of knew, you know, that was what I was talking about, like back when you toe the line between innovating and listening to feedback. We got the real sense that this was leading people to consume more content, to spend more time on the site, and to actually engage with the content they were seeing more deeply. So that led us to think that even though people were kind of up in arms today, that it was the right decision as a company to move forward in that way. And we learned a lot from that launch. We learned that you shouldn't just overhaul an entire site and have people click an awesome button and then their entire experience changes.
I don't know that it's any different now with Facebook launches.
Well, but now there's, you know, a lot of focus groups happen, rollouts happen to 1% of the user base at a time and gradually roll out. Users can get invited to beta test new features so that they can actually weigh in with their opinion. So we definitely learned a lot from that, but again, you know, you have to balance seeing a vision of the future and pursuing it while also making your customers feel listened to.
And just for context, the launch of the Newsfeed was revolutionary. And basically, in my book about MySpace, that's when I said the death blow to MySpace, because you had to go before that to everyone's profile and see what they were doing, which is it seems prehistoric in our conception of social media. But Newsfeed was really the revolutionary moment.
This will be our final question.
Example.
Go ahead. No, you're the last question, so make it good. It's going to be great.
Okay, I'll try. Can you give us an example of where it backfired, where social media backfired for a company that maybe put the word out there, they were interested in feedback, they got some, they didn't do anything about it, and it made it worse?
There's a few campaigns that I've seen. Again, I'm positioning all of these as like learning and room for opportunity, not as failure, because we all do things that, you know, are learning. There's a new space. But there was a campaign I saw, I believe that Chevy ran, where they just asked fans to create a commercial for Chevy, and they didn't really give guidelines around it. They were just like, create this commercial, and what they got were all these commercials back with like rainforests being bulldozed down and like, you know, global warming, and like Greenpeace came out and made 1 million videos, and that was probably not the outcome that they were hoping for when they asked their fans to make a commercial. But I mean, I think the learning out of that is that, you know, it's good to give people parameters and guidelines, especially when you're doing crowdsourcing, and that, you know, it's really important to have strong community management. You want to listen to your community, but you also need to manage and curate your community and put the resources into it.
I think that was for a Chevy that was also, it was for a particular car that was like the biggest gas guzzler of all time. Okay, so that was it. We're done. Thank you guys for participating in our social media experiment here. Thanks to Randi for joining us.
Thank you guys.